Start with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we see is that people in today's world basically enter relationships without actually analyzing what relationships and what the phase of the relationship they're in means for them. And this is one of the problems we want to tackle. Secondly, we see that the very same people end up in certain social and emotional handcuffs when they get married. And in order to sort of rid them of the shackles that they have sort of voluntarily obtained, what we would like to do is that we would make sure that the state should not recognize marriages legally speaking. This does not mean that, for example, people couldn't get married on a religious basis or simply get committed to each other. Instead, people should, in case they want to, form a private contract covering all the legal bases that otherwise the marriage of institution or the institution of marriage would tackle. But that is actually a voluntary and informed decision that they would have to take. In order to prove that this should be done, I'd like to tell you a few words about the notion of marriage, and then a few words about the implications for the individuals when the state stops meddling with their private affairs, and then last but not least, how that influences sort of social pressure upon the people who are in a relationship. Now, let's talk about the notion of marriage. Essentially, marriage is originally a religious tool that is a sort of a symbol of stability and committedness for the couple that is involved there. Again, whether it's gay marriage or heterosexual marriage, at the end of the day, in a liberal world, this doesn't really matter, but there's a lot of symbolic value there, and if you take a look at it in the Christian sense, then people were sort of made a commitment in front of God to be loyal to each other, which especially usually for the female side, provided a sense of stability in terms of knowing that she will be financially sort of in a solid position regardless of what's going to happen, because men brought home the bacon back in the day. Now, we understand that the people want that sort of stability, but the state-operated concept of marriage basically gives a cheat code to this guarantee of security that the individuals expect, and we think that this cheat code is not something that really ought to be given. Now, this basically brings me on to my second point about the state's behavior or state's sort of meddling in the private sphere. In case we actually force individuals to talk through their expectations towards each other and form a private contract between each other as to what they expect of their relationship with each other, what happens is that they end up making more informed decisions. Making more informed decisions means that their relationship is on a sort of a more stable ground. They actually don't have misexpectations, which means that stability within a relationship actually increases. Otherwise, what happens is that people sort of get married, then they get tired of each other. They find out that they didn't expect quite the same things, and they start getting divorced, and that has a lot of emotional, financial, and legal implications. But in case we force them to actually think their decision through, we can rid them of that pain. And also, if they do decide to break up, it will be a rational decision as opposed to an emotional decision, which will sort of linger on in their lives for years to come. And thirdly, we also have the social aspect of the symbol of marriage. So right now what happens is that if you actually get married, and then not only among each other do you have expectations, but the society, your peers, your family also develop certain expectations as to how you should behave. But we don't really see that this is justified at all. What expectations two individuals have towards each other should be entirely up to themselves, they are the sort of liberal or the individuals who know best what is good for them, and being in this framework that is put upon them by the society simply stops them being as happy as they potentially could be. So again, rather we think that they should talk about it, talk that over with each other. Yes?
Will your personal contract, won't it make the same framework on the people that they have now?
In case they choose to. because it's a private contract, whatever legal basis it covers and whatever expectations it codifies are negotiated between the two of them. It's not a standard template of a contract that sets all these expectations upon you. So again, you privatize that, and there will be no social expectations as such. And well, this is good, first of all, in the during or for the individuals themselves, and equally, should they get divorced, what happens is that they sort of divorce, they get separated, move out of the apartment, etc. And what might happen often is that these people want to reconcile the issues that they had, but since they are divorced in the classical sense of the word, then the peers around them are going to sort of, see it a bit weirdly in case they decide to crash at each other's place again or try to reconcile these issues, because they say that, if you get divorced, you should have a spine, you should stick with it. Again, this is not really up to them at all. We should eliminate this social pressure that comes from the symbol of marriage itself, and liberate individuals. So essentially what we have said is that there should be no legal recognition towards the institution of marriage. People can make all the commitments they want to, and they may codify that in law. We see that they take more informed decisions, which means that their relationships are more rational and they won't go into emotional conflict as easily. We see that the state's meddling in their, has these positive implications. And we also see that socially viewed, the people will be more liberal and therefore more able to realize their relationships and their lives in a way that is most meaningful for them. On those grounds, I beg you to propose.
Right, thanks speaker for his speech, and now I invite the first speaker of the opposition team.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And today, opposition believes that we should not abolish the institution of marriage because it's important for people, and people have a right to choose whether not to marry or to marry if it's important for them. Now, coming to what the Prime Minister, in fact, said, the proposition never really clearly stated what is really the difference of what they are suggesting, like this legal contract, and what is the difference between this and the civil marriage. So, in fact, they really failed to show how, for example, these kinds of legal treaties, as we do have them now, are mutually exclusive with marriage, because these two can exist together, coexist, and people should have a choice whether to make a legal pact, to have a marriage, let's say, if they differ at all, or to do none of them. So basically, coming to what was said, first of all, it was said that this is a symbol of stability. It's purely was religious, but what we see now, it's symbolic. Now it's commitment to the society. You really want to stay together. It does not really imply anything like what was said before. Secondly, it was said that the abolishing of marriage in some way would force people to make more informed decisions, to talk things through. But why cannot they do that when they have the marriage? Why couldn't we just, let's say, no thank you, have this prepare before getting married, where you could get some psychological, let's say, consultation or legal consultation, also to sign the pact, for example, legal issues, no thank you, and so on and so on. This does not really clash with the marriage itself. So these institutes really can coexist together, as I'm going to show you in my substantive material. Now, about the social pressure and how it, in fact, shackles people into relationship they don't want. No, thank you. Well, today the opposition believes that people are rational people right now. It's not Middle Ages. It's not, Middle Ages. People now are rational. They do not understand. They do not understand this as some kind of religious commitment and so on and so on. Now this commitment to each other. They choose themselves to who to be with. And they choose themselves to commit to each other in the eyes of the society and the government. Thank you. We think that we should leave this opportunity if they want to. And in fact, I'm going to show you why the social pressure, in fact, in the end, is a good thing in this debate. So, coming to what today the opposition wants to offer you. So, first of all, is of course the freedom to choose. People should have a right, if they find this institution of marriage so important. Let's say, for example, like the gay people now are fighting for being able to get this institution, legally. So in fact, it shows how for different types of people in the society, how this institution of marriage is really important. People they are not running from it. They are running to it. They want this because it's important for them to commit to each other. Yes, please.
But that's our problem. They get access to this set of conditions of a contract, but they don't really think it through because the topics are so inconvenient to discuss, what will happen to our finances, what will happen to the kids. They just use the cheat code.
Yeah, but if they don't want to marry, if they find it inconvenient, then okay, do not marry. But if you find it convenient, if you can talk it through, that's great. So you should get the ring on your girl and be happy for the rest of the life. We didn't see why in fact this clashes. Why in fact this cannot coexist together, and why people should not be able to choose whether to commit in front of the society or to not. Because if people find it important to themselves to commit not only to each other by word, but to commit to, let's say, exchange rings or whatever in front of the society, so that's good. We think that people should have this ability to choose from all of these things, and that is basically their right. Now, coming to the second point from the side of the opposition, what we say today that when people commit to each other in front of the society, they are more likely to stay together. They are more likely to think through the things, for example, the little problem that comes after, let's say, honeymoon period, and so on and so on. Because they are not only committed to each other in this place, as they voluntarily did that, but they also committed to society, and that is important because in the face of the society now there are a couple that are strongly binded together, and thus they are more likely to, for example, to solve those issues that they come up with and not to run, because now they have this bondage in the face of the society. So if they're more likely to stay together, that's purely logical that for kids it's a better environment to grow up in environment of a family that's able to reconcile, let's say, the differences or talk through things and solve the issues. And they are more likely to live in this bonded family, and it's better for them, for their psychological development, and so on and so on. So we see that the society did not pressure people into marrying, because at first place, now in this secular society, we choose that freely. But when they are married, they are more likely to think about the problems they come to, and to reconcile the difference, solve the issues, and then not to run from each other, because they are not committed only to each other, but also as a self to the society. So in the end, what the proposition deeply believes, that because what the proposition suggested today, it's not mutually exclusive. We can make a lot of other things. We have those legal treaties. We can get terms before marriage, let's say, of psychological consulting and legal consulting, if people want to, and they have the right to choose. So in fact, because they have this freedom to choose, this right to choose, I say, and it's better for the couple and for the offsprings, I beg you to oppose this motion. Thank you very much.
Right, thank the speaker for her speech, and now I invite the second speaker from the opening government team with Democrats.
I'd like to start with the quote of a philosopher that our life should be guided by knowledge, but at the same time inspired by love. What I want to say is we have love because people love each other. They want to live together, they want to have children, want to be together until the end of the life. But we don't have knowledge at the moment because when people are in love in the beginning of the coexistence, they don't want to talk about our topics which are uncomfortable for them. What will happen if? What will happen if we'll, for example, for some reason have to separate, and you go there, I go here? What will happen if, I don't know, we have financial problems? What will happen if something else happens, another force majeure? And they don't want to put it into a contract, and that's why we oppose to what the opposition said, that people that coexist coexist the marriage institution and the contract, the juridical contract point, because people are too lazy, and at the same time they are afraid of touching those topics. It's just easier for them just to get married and forget about that. And when the problems will occur, they then will start thinking of them. And even then, oftenly, they don't want to talk about them, because it is easier for them just to hold them in there, and it is like it's very oftenly people don't talk about their problems, and they hold them in them, and they collaborate, and at the end they burst out, and then it's too late. And then the only thing which might happen is, okay, let's get divorced. But now, if we get rid of the institution of marriage, then people won't have a thing to, like a checklist. Okay, now we're divorced, or now we're married, because you're just together. You love each other. If you have problems, then you talk about them. You don't have to. I wake up to, okay, let's get married, yay. Or the other day, we have problems. Let's get divorced. We have problems. We talk about them, because we are not afraid of the thing that. No, thank you. We are afraid of the thing that she'll become my ex-wife. What will happen then? There come to two issues here. One is social. The other is another psychological. The social aspect is, what if I divorced my wife, and, for example, in half a year I decide, no, it was a bad idea. What will say my friends? What will say my family? What will say my colleagues? Yes, please.
So isn't that good? So you are more likely to, for example, to solve these issues and to stay together than not having this kind of thing. Simply to run away from the problems and leave your children fatherless, let's say.
No, you don't leave your children fatherless. If you're married, for example, you get married. It's like a bond. I know it's good. You get married. You're happy. Then comes a problem in your life. You may solve it, or you may not. Therefore, if you are married, then you have an option not to solve those problems, or go to the easy way and just okay, fine, let's get divorced. No, thank you. Let's get divorced, and that's the story. Or again, if you haven't got the bond to break, then you don't need to make the painful decision. Okay, now it's the end, and we get divorced. We're gonna get a divorce. So the process will be less painful, will be more smooth, and then we think that it might decrease the number of broken families, of lonely mothers, of unhappy people, and therefore it might help the whole society. Now, about the psychological aspects of that, if for some reason you might find that you would like to be again with your wife, with your now called ex-wife, then you might start thinking, okay, she's my ex-wife, the term ex-wife, the ex-wife, that there was a reason. No, thank you. There was a reason why I divorced her. But now, if you lose the term marriage, divorce, ex-wife, ex-husband, then even psychologically is that she's my friend. She's we were together. No, we're not together. She's just like your ex-girlfriend. Because I think everyone agrees that it is much easier to go back to your friend rather than your ex-wife. No, thank you. And the last point which I'd like to bring up is how children see it, or might see it, is that if the parents get divorced, then the child has to say to his friends, my parents are divorced. And it's like the society already understands is that it's this family is broken. That's it. But if we lose the institution of marriage, then the child could just say, I don't know, my parents live apart or whatever, and there's no that crappy feeling that I'm the unhappy child whose parents are divorced. Thank you.
Right, thank you, speaker, for your speech. We invite the second speaker for opposition.
Thank you for the floor, Mr. Speaker. I'm really glad to stand today on the opposition side, as it's pure logic, and the proposition have totally failed to show an exact mechanism how those benefits that they were numbering here will actually arise. Will arise exactly from this policy. We see we can reach those benefits from like social advertisements or something. Then in these social advertisements we would show like that families have to be more aware of their relations and so on and so forth. So this they have shown. This they have failed. Now the short rebut. The speaker just came here and he actually the proposition case was one case, and there was no big difference between first and the second speaker. But second speaker named some benefits, like people will be more aware of the situations, they will be more aware of their relations, but we don't see how this works, how exactly this policy establishes this bigger awareness of their relations. How? They didn't manage to show us. Now, on the other side, we see huge that we already have legal contract, and we see huge problem with this policy. We see inconsistency in the government itself if the government would implement such a policy. We say government already have legal contracts, and now it would some kind abolish and neglect the rights of the people, which was my colleague was talking about, the rights of the people to choose to commit in eyes of the society. Those who don't want, they can not to choose. They can go and have legal contract, and that is in the status quo. Yeah, sure.
Okay, tell me. So, if this status quo is so effective, why do we have so many divorces?
Okay, that's how people live. And what's with the divorces? Okay, we have way much more effective tools to reach the objectives, the ends that we want to reach. For example, the lower degree of divorces. If we think, though, if we even suppose that this is good, I don't like. Okay, we can reach the lower degree of divorces by other means, but by this policy would neglect some people's some people's rights, and other people who don't want to have marriage in the eyes of the state. They can have those contracts, and they are already there. Now the other point is, even if this contract brings some of the benefits, that how is this different from the marriage? Because look, society will perceive this contract the same way. So if we do not change a society's view in any way, the society will in the same way perceive this contract. It will perceive as a little bit different, but still the marriage. It will perceive it as, okay, they had this contract, but it's still the marriage, and the everything that comes with this, it will be like status quo. Will do no good. We have to change if we want to achieve, for example, the better welfare of the better relations in the families, in the peers. We need other means to do that. This policy fails in all ways to achieve those goals. We can have social advertising. We can have awareness programs in schools, in universities, where young people gather, or I don't know, in television, some kind of discussion in media, and so on and so forth. But by these means, we can change the attitude of the whole society. By just implementing such a ridiculous policy, we in no way will change the perspective of how society treats and how society perceives the marriage, and because of this, because that this policy would not like change the situation, it would be like more bureaucracy, and we don't see what benefits comes from this policy. We say, okay, to some extent the pressure from society when the couples are already married is good to some extent. But we say, yeah, we agree with you that it's not good when young couples, before they get married, we agree that it's not good that young couples are pressed to get married. We say, on this we have to grow awareness, but not by such a ridiculous policy. By other means, by like social advertising, by awareness programs in the media, or something like that. By these means we can make the situation different. By these means we can change the society's attitude, which actually is the most important in the problem that we are talking about. We agree that pairs have to be. It's good that pairs have better relations, but we don't see in any way how this policy and opposition fail to show the clear links between these private contracts and the better and bigger awareness in the actual family. They absolutely fail to show us these concrete links, and because of the ridiculousness of this program, I beg you to oppose.